Hi, I'm Margaret Wang. I'm here with Allied Athletes. Allied Athletes is an online community for current and former athletes. Visit us at goalliedathletes.com. Today we have Bay Club Courtside, Michelle Molesky and Sammy Kai. They're going to talk to us about fitness and movement. So Sammy, what can you tell us about movement and how that works?
Movement, well, it's can be as complex as you want to make it or as simple as you want to make it. I mean, there's a very large breadth from, laying and sitting to, doing gymnastics or ice skating. So it depends on what you're looking to do. I mean, in setting your goals and from a fitness standpoint, yeah, what sport do you want to do? Do you want to be functional or do you want to be really specific in sport?
So it really has to do with individualizing for that person.
Definitely.
Okay. Now, how do you move forward? How would you change the fitness regimen for someone who might want to compete in a sport? Michelle or Sammy?
I think it starts with where their current fitness level is. If you've got somebody who's deconditioned and let's say their goal is to complete a 5K, that program's going to look vastly different than somebody who's coming in with a solid base of endurance and foundation who is training for, say, an Ironman or a marathon. So it's, again, to counter what or go along with what Sammy's saying, it's very individual. It's where the person's at and where they want to go and then mapping out a plan for that.
So now walk me through this process. What is that exactly like? So let's take maybe someone who's more competitive. What would that look like?
In terms of movement, when I first take a look at a person, all trainers kind of do their own kind of assessment, right? And we're always kind of assessing how people move, and we're making adjustments as they're doing a certain exercise. So the first time you see somebody, I have people either start with Pilates or I have a general circuit program that I see them go through. And really basic exercises, and you want to see how their posture is, you want to see how their hips move, their knees move, their ankles move. You want to see how a lot of big joints move and get a feel of how they kind of do basic movements. And then you kind of start getting more complex and kind of building on top of that.
I see. So you have this assessment to learn about how everything is connected.
Yeah,
and then
see how
you
they
go
move in
from
general.
there.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I have a kind of thing where I tell my clients, and you can worry about your ears, you worry about your toes, but I kind of talk about what's your alignment like, what's your balance like, can you move from your center really well, and then how is the rhythm of your movement. So I kind of try to stay with those three things to start them off with, and I think they could take that really, really far if they kind of focus on those things with their movement.
And now, how would you say that you work on that? So how do you get people to be more aware of their movements or make everything more connected?
Yeah. So with Pilates, it's just there's a couple ways. You really want to be mindful. They call it mind-body exercise, and it's been hard to define for a lot of people, but it could mean a lot of things at the same time. Is being aware of what you're doing, right, and what you're specifying and what you're targeting. Think about the exercise that you're doing. In terms of like the Franklin method, they actually have you image things with the exercise to kind of help you facilitate that connection better as well. So those are kind of two ways and two different techniques of getting at it.
Okay, so there's a component where you visualize and you kind of see that part of your body working.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
As opposed to think about what you're gonna have for lunch or do later in the day. You see some people kind of come in and
Definitely.
they're talking the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's just there's a big difference of quality of exercise when you're actually thinking about it versus thinking about something else.
Agreed. I think the more you can really focus on what you're trying to do and recruit the correct muscle groups, it really raises the bar in terms of the quality of the exercise. I feel like a lot of people will go into a gym setting and be there for an hour and a half, and they'll be reading the newspaper or talking to friends and not at all aware or engaging what they should be. You could cut that workout in half and have it be far more productive if you're really tuned into your body and what you're feeling and what you're coming in with in terms of energy and effectiveness.
So it's really about being in the present moment.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise you could just not be working as effectively.
Absolutely.
Now, give me some examples of where you go from here in terms of your assessment. So after the assessment.
I think in terms of cardiovascular, if somebody's training for some type of endurance event, I would find out where their cardiovascular health is, and I would do that through a field test, basically. So if they're going to do a run event, then I would have them do, you know, an 8-minute submaximal effort to determine what their average heart rate was during the effort, how far they went. You're measuring everything, weather, track surface, or if you're running on a treadmill, you would do the same thing on a bike. Similar concept, 15, 30, 45-minute max effort. But because it's max effort for a longer period of time, it's got to be a sustainable effort. And then that's something that you can use to map out heart rate, wattage, functional threshold power, and really plan it out for the whole season for that athlete, and make sure you have measurables and determine where they're starting from and then where you can get them.
So you have a very concrete plan as to where they're going to go and how much they can improve throughout the season.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that, and Sammy, I'm sure, can join in on this, is recovery. Making sure, I think people, you know, personality type, somebody will come in and they're going to constantly be overreaching and stretching when they should be scaling back, you know, and having, you know, workouts peppered in throughout the week or the season that are really pushing them to like a race pace effort, and then having downtime to allow the adaptation to take place, because it's when you leave the facility or you're resting and you know, replenishing through nutrition, hydration, that's when your body actually makes progress.
Yeah, that's a huge point. I mean, it's kind of I think what more novices and amateurs don't really understand is that kind of yin and yang, the other side of the coin of it. And in any kind of high-level athlete, let's talk about their coach will plan out a periodization schedule, whether they understand it or not, right? And the periodization schedule is a microcycle, which is a workout, to a macrocycle, which is more of, you know, we can go hard for anywhere between 2 and 8 weeks, and understanding where to put those breaks in. And that's a really kind of big part of the recipe for in terms of endurance athletes, and think about a season. And even as an athlete, you know, playing football or something, you can't just go hard all the way through. It's understanding the ebb and flows of it, and that's individualized too.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there's a part where athletes need to take some rest time in order to optimize their performance. So tell me about what that looks like, you know, in more concrete terms.
In terms of frequency or what the rest, because you can have active rest. You know,
yes,
I think,
exactly. What is that?
An active rest day could be, you know, going for a walk with your dog, spending time riding to town with your family, something very casual. It could be, you know, like a easy yoga class or something along those lines, or it can be just a total rest day where you're really just, you know, taking it easy and not doing anything physical. But I think to reference what Sammy's saying also with the periodization, there's percentages of efforts throughout that cycle where, you know, you have some weeks that are easier in terms of overall intensity, and those are adaptation weeks where the body's going through recovery from a previous, you know, 4-week stretch of working harder. So that active rest is played in the actual program itself throughout the year, and just even in a given week.
So I see the periodization kind of is a way for the body to adapt and to recover.
Correct, yeah, to scale up the intensity, to progress it or regress it.
Okay. Now, what is the best way to mark one's performance or progress over time?
You know, I mean, if you're looking at performance, then you're probably racing, right? So you're just gauging in, and there's no, it's not just about the fastest time to gauge performance. That's one way to gauge it, but you know, as you're racing through the season, you have kind of, we call A races and B races and C races. So some you're really targeting with the periodization schedule and trying to peak for. Others you're kind of training through, and others you're just trying to get experience on. So those are different ways of kind of looking at racing and using them to help you. So one race you could be, okay, this is my A standard race, I'm going to see how fast as I can go, and it's going to be a good test to see what I'll look like maybe in 2 more months. And then there's other races where you train through them and you're like, maybe I want to work on some technique here. So was I relaxed at this part of the race, or other race strategy, or did I pick it up at this time in the race, and how did I feel like in a triathlon? Maybe just working on the swim and trying to get the best out of your swim, or working on the run at the end, and you know, not worrying about the other ones as much, but focusing on that. So there's different ways of gauging it. You know, as a coach, I think, you know, there's a lot of different ways you can have success without just having a super fast time or PR, which we always aspire to get, but you know, you learn a lot you're learning all the time.
Yeah, and I think to take it to the other end of the fitness world, you know, where we kind of live, is just in terms of general fitness. How does somebody mark progress? You know, we have a lot of people coming in through the assessment process, and you know, we're talking about goal setting, and their goal is to lose weight. I'm really less concerned about what somebody's total body weight is, and more concerned about what their body composition is. So how much, what percentage of their body is fat mass, and what's lean body mass, and that determines what drives the metabolism. So tracking that over the course of you know, a program is important, and will show progress, as well as how quickly does somebody recover. You could have somebody in their 70s who is unable to get themselves up off of a chair without assistance, and then after training for a couple months, they can stand up on their own without having to use hands to support. So there's a lot of different ways to track it, through strength, you know, how quickly you recover from an aerobic effort, to your body composition change, how you feel, how, you know, how are you managing stress.
So there are a lot of different methods of measuring success and progress, I'm hearing. What else would you like to share with us today?
I think nutrition is something that is also obviously important. I know that it's a big part of recovery and performance and somebody's ability to feel good. It's directly linked to somebody's quality of health and how much inflammation they have in their body, their risk of disease. So that's something I think that people, if they're going into that, stepping into a gym setting and they work out for a couple hours a day, and you're spending 2 hours in there, maybe working very hard, and then you have 22 hours outside of the facility where you can undo a lot of that, you know, effort that you put into the gym in terms of your food choices, you know, food timing, total calorie consumption, macronutrient spread of protein, carbs, and fat. So that's an important factor to consider. Especially in a racing. Sammy can speak to that more directly, but from the performance,
Yeah, and again, we talk about individualization. Certain things work well for certain people during a race, certain things don't. So you got to find out what works for you. And everybody has different lives, you know, 9 to 5 schedule versus us, where we're kind of there all day, and knowing when to eat and when to get your snacks and stuff like that is a challenge in itself. And it's something. You know, I always think about exercise as your own personal journey. You got to figure out what works for you. Get some advice. Be open-minded. The eating's important. The exercise is important. The sleep is important. The stress and the fun too. Right. So you're juggling a lot of different things. And you know, I was watching The Martian not long ago. The movie with Matt Damon. One of my favorite lines from that movie was, he's at the end talking to his class, and he says. For me, it's a total, you know, fictitious movie, but he was saying, you know, the more problems that you solve gives you a better chance of going home. And for me, I look at, you know, I like to race triathlons, and I think the more problems I solve, the more successful I'll be. You know, and it encompasses a lot of things. It's not just a workout. It's not just food and this. It's a lot of things. You could, and, you know, you could weight how much you want to worry about everything, but it can be a lot of things. There's always something that can benefit you.
So it's almost like all of these components work together.
Yeah.
Nothing is solely, you know, weight or training. They all kind of interact.
Yeah, I think it's also just talking about wellness as opposed to, say, fitness, right? You know, I mean, a big part of wellness is stress management, and, you know, and with the type of lifestyle we live now, where we're always engaged, we're plugged into our phones, you know, we get email all the time, you know, managing, you know, when we have downtime where we're able to unplug and, you know, add that component into a wellness program as well, you know, so.
So we're kind of looking at the general picture so that we can be our best selves, but perform.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because we talk about performance a lot and wellness too, but you know, you see athletes and it's not always hand in hand.
That's right.
You see some athletes doing some very strange things, you know, and so you know, they'll do anything to win at some point, and so we gotta be careful sometimes when I talk about fitness, and sometimes, you know, I actually wouldn't advocate anybody do an Ironman. I've done some Ironmans, and it's a very heavy load on your body. When you talk about kind of performance in that way, there's a risk return, right? So when I start talking about, you know, I think anybody could run a 5K relatively safely, 10K, sprint, Olympic distance triathlon. As you start to get further and more intense, you kind of get a higher risk, low return. And when I'm looking at my clients, I'm always looking at, okay, what's the low risk, high return? You know, what's a really good exercise that won't hurt them at all? You know, a workout. You know, they could go on a, you know, it's funny because I'm a runner, and I love to run, and you get in the mind that we always are supposed to run, and if you walk, then you're not a runner anymore. Once you walk, you just fallen off the category. You can't categorize.
I'm a jogger.
Yeah, you're a jogger or a walker. But actually, as I've gotten, I like to say more mature.
Yeah.
I'll do a lot of runs where I'll walk and run.
Me too.
I'll run for a bit, and if I see something that's interesting or beautiful scenery, I'll just stop and I'll walk and I'll enjoy it for a little bit. So, as opposed to the old me in high school, every day was as hard as I could train, kind of idea. And I had a lot of problems with that, with injuries and things.
I agree. I think, and as you get older, I find myself doing the same thing. It's like if I run, walk, hike, and I'm not actively competing anymore, but I do remember being younger, and every day I went as hard as I could, and if I had a goal of running, a certain distance or time, I would, rain, sleet, snow. I remember riding my bike up on Skyline, and it was snowing out, and I'm on my road bike. So learning to balance and be, more appropriate with how you're applying your training principles also. But I think it's that athlete mindset, right, where it's like you just always feel like you can give an extra 10%, but it's really when you take out 20 or 30% that you're going to see the best gains and avoid injury, right?
Yeah.
Which is what a goal for all of us should be.
Yeah.
So.
It's really about that adjustment period that you're talking about, because if you don't take that rest, you're going to get injured.
Yeah.
So as an ex competitive figure skater, I got injured a lot because of the same things that you guys were doing. So it's kind of like getting to know yourself and where you can draw back a little bit, and then where you can push hard.
Right. Yeah. And it's in the drawing back that truly allows you to push hard in those moments, in those A races, and using those B and C races to prep you for that one performance that you really want to focus on. So, yeah.
That's great. So let's see, what else can we talk about? I think I'd love to learn a little bit more about cross training, how that fits into your training regimens, you as a coach, what are your thoughts?
For me, I just came off a really, really hard block where I did 3 Ironmans in a year, and I feel like I've been training for pretty much a year and a half straight. And so, one of our coworkers, Jose Costa Pinto, one afternoon was like, "Let's just go surfing and just forget about what you're doing." And so I did, and I had an unbelievable time. I've been this off season now. I've been trying to surf as much as I can, and it's a great workout. It changes, what I'm thinking about, and feels good. And that's the main thing is cross training. Feels good. I love swim, bike, run. I could turn it on and do it all the time. But it's good to do other things for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And I love to ski in the wintertime too. So I try to mix it up in the off season as much as I can. Mostly for mental and for it gives your body a break too.
Yeah, I think I actually got into triathlon because I was a runner and I ran nonstop, 7 days a week, constantly, got multiple injuries, multiple surgeries as a result of the injuries. And so my doctor was like, you need to find other activities that you can do and I'm like, nothing's like running. It takes forever to get the bike ready, but I got forced to because I was on crutches. And so after one of my surgeries, I took a weekend workshop, total immersion swimming clinic. And so just to refine the swimming. And so I'm like, okay, this is something so I started to adopt these other activities and in doing so, spread out my risk of injury and was able to continue. I'm still able to run. I love to bike and swim. I hiked from Big Basin to the sea with my dad a few months ago. So to speak to your question of cross training, I think it's just important to keep you injury free. It's a fresh approach. You have a lot of options. So I wake up this morning. Do I feel like going for a bike ride today? Do I want to go for a hike? Do I want to go for a run? Do I want to rest? Do I just want to go for a walk with my dog? So I think it opens up a lot of opportunity to do different things and, surf, stand-up paddleboard. Especially where we live. We live in such a beautiful place. You can truly pick any activity and have a wonderful time.
Oh yeah, we're so lucky.
We're so lucky.
Yeah. So there are just so many options, and there are many ways that you can keep training, but then allow yourself some time to rest as well.
That kind of movement is movement, there's a lot of different ways to move, and from a motor learning standpoint, it's good to stretch your mind out, and try different things because it'll learn and be better for it in your own sport that way too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of just the physiological response of exercise, you know, if you're biking, hiking, running, swimming, you're getting that cardiorespiratory benefit, right? You know, in terms of, you know, maximizing, you know, and you can change the amount of stress it has on the body. Swimming, very low stress, no impact. You know, running, high impact. Cycling, less impact. You know, surfing, completely different, more, you know, balance training, stand-up paddleboard, snowboarding, skiing. You know, all of those things offer different benefits, you know, at the same time delivering some level of fitness.
So now we've looked at a lot of different options and ways of optimizing your fitness. Let's look at different ways of staying nutritionally fit.
Okay, I think, you know, there's a lot of different fads out there when it comes to diets and paleo and, you know, Atkins, and I've been in the industry for over 25 years and I've seen it all: low fat, fat free, high fat, high protein.
Detox,
Detox,
cabbage,
yeah, there's
cabbage
just,
diet.
you know, and I think that my recommendation, my approach, and I feel like nutrition is very individual as well. I feel like people, you find out what your body thrives in terms of macronutrients, but my suggestion is to just eat a balanced diet, have a lot of, you know, nutrient dense foods in your diet that are not processed. I think that, you know, vegan eating is a very healthy lifestyle. I think, you know, having following a zone type diet can be healthy for some people. So finding what works for you, but just making sure that you're getting as many nutrients and nutrient dense foods in your body as possible. High fiber, you know, vitamin rich foods. Low fat protein sources, healthy fats, omega-3s, cold water fish, nuts, nut butters. I feel like, you know, going to all these extremes might be great for a short-term result. So let's say you go on the cabbage soup diet. Yeah, you're going to lose weight, but it's not something that's sustainable, and you're not even losing the kind of weight that you really should be focusing on losing, which is body fat. Body fat loss is a slow, consistent process of having an energy deficit at the end of a big, you know, cycle of a week, 2 weeks, or a month's time. That's not going. You can't create that kind of deficit and just lose body fat. Your body will go into protection mode and slow the metabolism down.
So what I'm hearing is that it doesn't really matter what kind of diet you choose, but which one offers the most nutrients.
Yeah, and which agrees with your body the most. You know, some people can wake up and have a really heavy breakfast and that's protein rich, and other people are going to feel much better having, you know, like oatmeal and, you know, a handful of nuts and a piece of fruit. So finding out what works for your own body, I think, is important too.
So tailoring it to the individual. Can't really generalize it.
Yeah, and trying something and seeing how it works, and making, I think this is another thing that people do, is they change 5 different things and then they see results and they don't know, it's hard to, you know, determine which one was the most effective. So, you know, make one change at a time and see how the body responds, and if you like it, then great, then you can add in another change, but doing it slowly so you can really, you know, make it more scientific and understand the effect it's having on your, you know, fitness.
And now I'm going to ask a more general question. How would you compare someone who might not be training for some event, but rather more, you know, everyday kind of low-level fitness nutrition plan?
Yeah, so if you're having somebody like me who's going to be eating quite a bit on a daily basis, I mean, I'm probably around 32 to 3,400 calories, right? And as opposed to somebody who has maybe a desk job,
Right.
you would have a totally different plan and value in a lot of ways. And so I think kind of one of the things that my dad was a doctor, and he really looked into diabetes and metabolic syndrome, which is a precursor to a lot of diseases. And his big thing was you eat for what you do, right? So knowing how much you're going to burn in a day or a week and eating accordingly to that. It's like putting gas in the tank. You know, you're not going to put, you know, 50 gallons of gas in the tank if you only have a 20-gallon tank and you're only driving this much. So figuring out how to eat for what you do. And there's been some recent articles about even periodizing your eating for athletes. So athletes, you know, when we're in a big, heavy cycle, then you're going to be eating quite differently than when you're in a recovery cycle. Yep.
Or maybe during off season, or maybe during that period where you take it down a notch.
Yeah, so it changes even with athletes too, and so it should change with people. So you're eating for what you do more specifically, and we see that as a problem a lot. Is it something I've seen that worries me is is I see somebody new and they'll come in and they'll want to work out really, really hard, but they go on a really extreme diet at the same time. And I'm like, well, those are opposite things. You know, if you were sitting at your desk, then maybe you want to diet a little bit and, you know, be sure about if you're getting just the right amount of calories. But now that you want to start working out, you know, anywhere between 3 and 5 days a week, we got to make sure you're eating the right calories now, not less. Yeah.
So it's almost like people forget about the gas in the car. They forget that they might need more calories as a result of working out
Yeah,
more.
they're almost taking two different theories and blending them. Like they're taking, okay, I should. My doctor told me to lose weight and watch my calorie content, right, and not eat. But you didn't tell them that you're going to be working out this much,
Right.
right? And so one theory says that you should be working out and eating this way. The other one says if you're not working out, then you should eat this way. And they're trying to put them together. They don't work that way together.
Yeah, I think people forget that food is fuel.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not entertainment, and it's not something to do when you're bored. It's fuel, and if you treat your body like a high performance car, you're going to put the best fuel in it, you know. And so it's the same kind of concept. So I think to your question of what should somebody who's not performing at a high level of fitness, they should be doing the same thing that an athlete's doing. It's just scaling it down so that the energy, that the amount of calories that they're consuming is appropriate, right? So, you know, if you look at Sammy's size and he's able to eat over 3,000 calories, that tells you how active he is. If you took that same body and had him sit at a desk, we'd be cutting those calories down dramatically. Not necessarily the nutrition quality, because everybody should be eating nutritious foods, whether you're an athlete or a desk athlete.
So it really just depends on needing to tailor it to what your day looks like.
Absolutely.
Any last thoughts in our few minutes left?
You know, I think that fitness is very individual for people. I think that, you know, fun, you know, Sammy mentioned having it be fun, something you enjoy. It needs to be a lifestyle. So that looks very different for everybody. So having an open mind, trying different activities and finding what you really like. And then once you're comfortable doing those, then keeping an open mind and trying something new, you know, whether it be a different activity, exercise class, you know, anything. So I think having variety is key.
And really being open to trying out new things and just enjoying the sports available to you.
Sure.
So thank you so much for coming on. And here we have Bay Club Courtside, and I'm here with GoAlliedAthletes.com. And thank you for watching today.